One of the questions I have for you tonight is pain defining who you are. The victim saboteur is that voice that says that you're never going to get past the stuff that you've been through. But what I'd like to say to you tonight is, what if? What if the pain isn't your identity? What if the pain is just a chapter? And so those are the two things that we're going to build off of tonight. The voice that says you're not going to get past it. And then this question, what if this isn't your identity? What if this is just a chapter? I hear stories all the time. I heard a story from a woman who had lost her sense of joy, but she keeps showing up for other people. I heard from a man who feels invisible. Even in a room full of friends, he feels alone. Or maybe you're like one participant that we had at a meeting like this. They're tired all the time. And deep down, they're wondering, am I just someone who's always going to feel this way? So if you're grieving or you're carrying deep wounds, it's completely normal to feel like your pain has just taken over. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. Lots of us feel that way. But the victim saboteur is probably at work underneath and is probably whispering that you are uniquely flawed. You're not flawed like everyone else. You're uniquely flawed. Or you're always destined to feel left out. That's what the saboteur, that's what this victim saboteur often is saying to us. But tonight is about something new. You're going to get to see how to figure out which saboteurs are the most active in you. It may not be the victim saboteur. That's okay. We're going to give you a tool by the end of tonight to figure out which saboteur is messing with you the most, because there's actually 10 of them. We're only going to talk about this one tonight, the victim saboteur. Maybe you'll find out tonight the first step out of whatever cycle you might be in, whether it's a victim cycle or whether it's some other saboteur that's messing with you. What are you going to learn tonight? You're going to learn how to recognize the victim saboteur voice and why it's showing up. It's important for us to know, why is this showing up the way it is? We're going to look at why pain and struggle sometimes feel like your identity. We're going to look at a simple practical tool that can quiet your negative self-talk. No matter what your negative self-talk is, this is going to work for you. Even if you're in a tough season right now, we're going to look at a new way to understand your story so that you can move forward and not get stuck in regrets of the past or what's happened to you. We're also going to show you how to spot your strongest saboteurs, and we're going to give you that free assessment I mentioned. We're going to help you step toward healing, step toward resilience, and step toward lasting peace. And we're going to do it in a Christian way, because that's the only way I know how to do it, because that's a part of who I am, having been a pastor for 30 years. All right, let me make sure I've got the right buttons pressed over here so I can see what everyone might be saying. They changed all the settings on this. They changed all the settings on this chat feature for me. So I have to figure out how this works. All right, I guess I'm good. So that's what you're going to learn. When I do these webinars, I need to let you know up front that this is really personal for me. This is me around 8 or 9 years old. I'm on the Maid of the Mist at Niagara Falls. And I didn't know it at the time, but soon after this, I'm going to lose both my mother, who's pictured here, and my stepfather, who probably took this picture. And I am going to develop a strong sense of not being understood, sometimes feeling invisible, and feeling like a victim of life and a victim of God. I started to believe that my pain was the most real thing about me. I remember thinking, if people really knew me, if they could really see what's inside, they'd see someone who is completely broken. And I didn't want to live anymore. I mean, who wants to live without like the top two of the top two of the top three people in my life were now gone. Some of you might be here tonight because of a recent loss or maybe an old wound that never seems to heal. It just keeps festering. Maybe you've survived something that is still shaping your days today. You don't have to explain or justify that pain here tonight. In fact, sometimes just hearing others name these patterns is a first step for you. So that's why I'm telling you a little bit about my story. And that's why I care so much about this topic. I've seen people in this community that are here for these webinars and the people that I've helped. I've seen that just by learning the name of their saboteurs that has been running their mind behind the scenes, that it gives them hope that they can do something about it. Because when we don't know exactly what's happening, so what we're going to try to do is like put up an x-ray machine to kind of show you what's going on the inside of you. That's how I felt when I first learned this material. So that's why I want to share it with you. Since I didn't take my own life back then as a kid, survival became my next goal. If I'm not going to kill myself, then I want to live, but I need to survive this without my mother and my stepfather. And up until a few years ago, around 50, I didn't realize how much I was still activating that survival part of my brain that got activated when I was a young man and I had that tremendous loss and trauma. The only way I found out how bad it was is that I took an assessment on this website. And here's what the assessment told me. It said that my mind was only serving me 55% of the time. 45% of the time, I was feeling stress and anxiety and frustration and anger and disappointment, shame and guilt. And only 55% of the time was I enjoying things like empathy and gratitude and curiosity and joy. So I was just over half. Like my tank was mostly empty or just a little bit fuller than halfway. And since then, I've learned some tools that can shift us from hopelessness to hope. It changed how I work now in my job. It changed how I lead. It changed, more importantly, how I love the other people around me. And so we're going to share at least a little bit of that with you tonight. And so why did I call the victim a saboteur? Why is this a saboteur? Well, we all have these internal characters inside of us. Some try to keep us safe, but over time, they can keep us stuck. And that's the case with the victim saboteur. It's not about being weak. It often comes from a deep sensitivity and a place of empathy. That's where it starts anyway. Especially if you have experienced trauma or loss, your mind is going to attempt to protect you, and it's going to shape how you see yourself. The victim's job is to convince you that your painful emotions are not just a part of you, but that they are all of you. And the reason is that the victim saboteur only has one set of glasses, and that's the victim set of glasses. So that's all it can see through. So it's going to try to convince you that's all of you. Last year, someone told me, they said, I thought being sad and misunderstood just meant I was deep or I was unique. But it turns out I was just replaying these old stories on loop, these old tapes of these things that happened to me. It wasn't that I was deep or unique. I was just replaying these stories over and over again. And so we're going to give you an assessment later that can help you spot what your strongest saboteur is. And trust me, seeing it in black and white is going to be humbling to you, but it's going to free you up to become what God wants you to when you learn how to quiet these saboteurs. Now, what is the lie of the victim saboteur? What kind of lies is this character telling us? You're never going to get past this. No one understands you. You're stuck, and that's just how it's going to be. You're uniquely flawed. You're not like everybody else. You're messed up uniquely, and sadness is a noble part of who you are. So just focus on that. You know, these are lies, And they aren't just loud. Sometimes the victim saboteur is sneaky. A woman told me, I get attention for being the one with the most pain in the room. Part of me wonders if I'm attached to the story, not just the suffering. Or there was a young man who always believed, I'm just wired for misery. If I got better, like, who would I be? So we get used to carrying this stuff in the emotional backpack, and sometimes it feels really comfortable, and we wonder, what would it be like not to have to carry this stuff anymore? If you feel like your pain is invisible or is being dismissed by others, that's real. It makes sense that your mind would try to make sense of it by telling stories, even if those stories are painful stories. What we know about the brain is that it rewards us for connecting dots. Sometimes it rewards us for connecting dots, even if those dots aren't supposed to be connected that way. Your brain says, thank you. You've given me a story. You've given me a way to see the world. But it actually can be to our detriment. And the victim saboteur is going to tell you no one gets you. No one is going to stay. That your pain is your deepest truth. But here's the shift that we want to take tonight. You're not what you feel. Think about that. You are not what you feel. You're not alone, and you're definitely not uniquely flawed. The Bible says that such is common to man. The temptations that we have, the flaws and weaknesses we have, they're common. We all have these kinds of weaknesses. So seeing your saboteur clearly is the start of the healing process. And we're gonna help you get more clear on that tonight. Some people wonder, well, how does the victim saboteur show up? Like, how does that show up? Because sometimes you can't see it yourself because maybe you're too close to it, too close to that family member who exhibits these characteristics, or too close to yourself if you're exhibiting them. So how does it show up? Well, sometimes it shows up in brooding or withdrawal or drama or just a deep fatigue. Like, I can't get moving. Craving understanding from other people. Like, no, let me say what I have to say because I need you to understand. But what happens is that often pushes people away. And we get attached to our struggle, secretly hoping that someone would rescue us, but we're so attached to our struggle. Feeling sometimes invisible or misunderstood or lonely, even when we're with a bunch of people. It doesn't have to always be like someone crying in a corner. Sometimes it's the person who makes a joke of their pain, like they're laughing and having a good time, but inside they're really feeling victimized. Or the one who's always exhausted, but is never going to ask anybody for help because of their victim mentality. Maybe you're quick to pull away when people misunderstand you, or maybe you find yourself quietly resenting other people because they seem happier, they seem more put together. Or you might feel secretly frustrated that nobody really understands just how much you're carrying in that backpack. If you're carrying grief or trauma tonight, these patterns often run deep for us, all the way back to our first losses and traumas as a child, or even being neglected in our family. These are not your fault. These things that go all the way back to your childhood. You were just a child. If you find yourself in these cycles, it's a sign that your mind is trying to protect you, even if it's not serving you anymore. The victim is in some way trying to help you. One person told me, I kept testing my friends to see if they'd come after me when I pulled away. And when they didn't, it just proved my story that I was always going to be left behind. Do you see how that pattern is exhausting and how it's self-reinforcing? It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way. If any of this sounds familiar, we're going to give you some steps tonight because you're going to find out that you're not alone. You're not the only one who feels this way. Now, it's important for us to know why we fall into these patterns. Why do we fall into this pattern? The victim saboteur often starts in childhood or after some deep hurt. Maybe you lost someone important in your life. Maybe something was done to you. This is a way for us to get care. This is a way for us to get attention or protection when life is feeling like it might not be safe. That's why we fall into this pattern. Many of us develop this pattern early in childhood, sometimes after deep hurt or disappointment. We may have learned to protect ourselves by focusing inward or hoping for someone to notice the pain that we had. And even the Bible recognizes that we are shaped by our experiences and our woundedness. The Psalms are full of honest cries for help, like, "How long, O Lord? Why have you forsaken me?" Even Jesus echoed those words in the New Testament on the cross. These feelings are a part of what it means to be human, and they are not a surprise to God. God isn't surprised by any of this. And so there's some good news. God sees you just like he saw Jesus on the cross. He knows your pain, and he doesn't leave us alone in it. In fact, the Bible says that Jesus is a high priest that can be touched with the feelings of our infirmities. So Jesus knows what that sense of victimization is like. The Pharisees victimized him. Judas, he was a victim in some ways in terms of having people betray him and do bad things to him. Now, what does the victim saboteur really cost us? It's important for us to know this because there is a high cost for all of these saboteurs to be unchecked and unnoticed or undealt with. There's a tremendous cost. And for some people, it's the burning up of energy in negative thinking and being what I call in the perseveration station. We're in that station where we're just perseverating over something. When we get into this mode, we're going to push people away, even when we want connection. Isn't that interesting? We want connection, but if we're always in this mode or in this mode a lot, it pushes people away because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. It also makes us feel stuck and helpless, like our pain is going to be permanent. So this costs us energy, joy, and connection. The Bible reminds us that it's the thief who comes only to steal and to kill and to destroy. But Jesus said that he was no thief, that he had come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. So Jesus came to bless you with life abundant. So he wants to help you with this fear that your victim saboteur is trying to handle. Let's learn tonight how to let Jesus handle it. So God's heart for you then is not for you to remain trapped in sorrow, but to move through the sorrow, to discover the abundant life that he's promising, even if it might feel far away tonight. You know, let me tell you, when I was 10 turning 11 and I lost my mother, that promise of an abundant life felt so far away. It felt so far away. So naming these patterns tonight is the first grace-filled step that we can take toward freedom. So I hope that you'll name whatever lies it is that you've been believing. This is your first step. It would be a bad night if I didn't explain that there's actually a strength underneath the victim saboteur. The victim saboteur is actually grabbing onto a strength of yours and using that strength, overusing and abusing that strength. And here are those strengths. God made you to be sensitive and deep feeling and empathetic and introspective. Those are traits that come from being made in the image of God. He's given you the ability to connect and inspire and help other people heal. That is beautiful and wonderful. The thing is, your victim saboteur is going to try to overuse that and abuse that and make that an idol in your life. So I wanted you to see that there's another side to this. People with a strong victim saboteur or victim saboteur patterns often have an enormous capacity for understanding other people. The scripture tells us that we should blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Your ability to feel deeply isn't a flaw. It's something that God can actually use for good in your life and in the lives of other people. He redeems our tears. It says he actually bottles them up. He cares about those tears, and with time, he can transform our pain into a source of compassion and hope for other people. What is possible from here then? Knowing that there is some strength that we have underneath that victim saboteur, what is possible from here? This is the hope that I want to leave with you tonight, that you are not defined by your pain. The Bible says, do not conform to the pattern of this world. The world has a mold it wants to mold you into, a pattern it wants you to follow. The Bible says, don't do that, but be transformed by the renewing or renewal of your mind. You see, with God's help, your mind can be renewed. Your identity is not in your wounds, but who God says you are. You are beloved, you are whole, you are capable of healing. And tonight, you'll have a chance to start that renewal by naming whatever your saboteurs are and beginning a new journey. So this is what's possible, that God can use that original strength if we could quiet this victim saboteur of yours. Right? If we could quiet it and get it to step back, then that original strength that you have of empathy and understanding, God can begin to use it in even greater ways than he already has. But something's going to have to happen. And the thing that's going to have to happen is actually something that we see in the Psalms. It's called being still. And so I'm going to show you a way to still yourself before God. So we're going to do this thing I call be still. And I'm going to show you some PQ reps. PQ reps, the word PQ comes from positive intelligence. You might have heard of EQ. EQ is emotional intelligence, but PQ is positive intelligence. And positive intelligence is a program I'll tell you about later if you stay on to the end. And that program teaches us some ways to get back into our bodies so that we can get out of that echo chamber in our brains where the victim saboteur lives. So I'm going to show you some exercises right now. We'll do them together and we'll see how they work for you. All right. So take a moment. If you're in a place where you can do this, I'll encourage you to close your eyes. If you can't, you can do it with your eyes open. That's fine. I want you to take a moment and just let your body be still. I want you to notice your feet flat on the floor. I want you to notice your body. If it's on a seat, notice the pressure points that are touching the seat. Notice the feeling of sitting on that seat. If you're not sitting, just notice whatever your body might be leaning up against. Now take a couple of deep breaths, deeper than normal. Now I want you to notice the temperature of air as it enters into your nostrils and the temperature of air as it exits your nostrils. You might notice the sensations in your nostrils may change with the inhale and then the exhale. Now, I want you to notice the rising and falling of your chest and your stomach with each breath. I want you to let go of any thoughts that you might be having. Let go of any thoughts and just keep coming back to these physical sensations. Take a couple of fingertips and rub those fingertips together, those finger pads. And as you do that, notice the fingertip ridges, those little ridges on your finger pad. those ridges remind you that you've been made wonderfully and fearfully by God. Place all the finger pads of one hand onto the finger pads in the palm of the other hand and rub them gently together. And notice all the sensations of touch that go with that. And now I want you to listen for the farthest away sound. What's that sound that you notice? Tune into that frequency for a moment. And now I want you to hear the sound that's the closest to you. It might be the sound of your own breathing. And now I want you to return back to the rising and falling of your chest and stomach. All right, wonderful. Thank you for doing those with me. And now I would love to hear in the chat what happened while you were doing that. I'm going to open up the chat so I can see everyone's responses all at once. What do you notice after a few minutes of doing that? What do you notice going on in your body? What do you notice going on in your brain? Is there something that particularly stood out to you as you were doing all those things? Someone said I relaxed. This was like a mindfulness exercise. All right. Very relaxing, says someone else. What else? Calm and less pain. Okay. Positive thought and hope. Excellent. Okay, good. If anything else comes up, just drop it in the chat for me. Feeling like slowing down and really noticing me. Okay, wonderful. All right. Now there's another one coming in. I forgot about what happened to me. Okay, good. So what you just experienced was a quieting of your survival brain and a firing up of your thriving brain. And so I want to show you what just happened. You activated what we call sage mode. You went from the saboteur region of your brain to the sage region of your brain. You went from a place where you might have been reactive, maybe all the busy thoughts you've had for the day, and you may have been reacting to those when you got here to the meeting. But now you have moved to a place of presence, a place where you can just be still and know that He is God. So there was a shift from stress, reactive, saboteur region to that calm, wise, sage part of your brain. And this is the foundation of any kind of mental fitness that you might learn, or any kind of mindfulness that you might learn. The thing is, you can only really activate one part of your brain. If you activate the saboteur region of your brain, you're going to be stuck there. If you activate the sage region of your brain, that's where you're going to be. And so it's a bit of a light switch in many ways as to how this works. I want you to imagine if this became automatic for you. What if this became automatic, that you were able to feel relaxed and calm and more clear-headed on a regular basis? What would life feel like for you if you were able to go through your days like that? How would that impact your work? How would that impact your relationships? How would that impact so many of the other things that you have had to deal with this past week? If you'd like to drop me a note in the chat as to what it would be like to have more of this in your life, what a difference that could make. All right. Calm and peace. I would be in control of my emotions instead of them controlling me. Okay. I'd be happy and have more energy. Okay. What else? Imagine if this 30-second practice that we did, or this 2-minute practice, became your new normal. How much more peace and patience and joy that you could walk in on a regular basis. Imagine conversations that used to drain you could now become moments of presence and peace. Imagine staying calm, even in grief or when triggered. And imagine that backpack that you've been carrying doesn't become your identity anymore, but you're able to quickly catch those thoughts that have you spiraling in victimhood. And you wouldn't be controlled by what other people are saying or doing. Wouldn't that be a good thing? So breaking the victim's grip, you can do this both with the PQ reps I just taught you and with God's truth. The Bible says we're not to conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Here is a simple strategy that you can use. I call it pause, pray, and presence. When you feel yourself having any negative thought, whether it's a victim-generated thought or coming from some other place, the idea is to pause, to stop for 10 seconds, and to take a moment to pray, ask Jesus to help you choose hope and not hopelessness, or whatever it is that you might need in that moment. If it's not hope, you can pray some other prayer for some other fruit of the Spirit, or joy, something like that. And then embody presence. Do 10 seconds of these PQ reps to recenter yourself. So you're literally stopping for 10 seconds, even in the middle of a tough moment, saying a simple prayer, and then doing 10 seconds of these PQ reps, feeling your fingertip ridges, noticing your breathing and the rising and falling of your chest and stomach, maybe listening for the sound of maybe if you're talking to somebody, just listening to the sound of their voice, or listening to the sound of your breathing. And notice that you can also feel God's presence with you in that moment. Whatever is going to anchor you back into the moment, whatever is going to anchor you back into hope, that's what we're after. Each time you do this, you're choosing grace over self-pity. You're choosing surrendering to God over hopelessness. And you're allowing God to begin to renew your mind and to start shifting your story so that the story begins to change. This is just the beginning. And if you'd like to explore how to build these habits deeper, I'm going to share some options with you after our Q&A time. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Just drop them into the chat. We're broadcasting this on Facebook and later on YouTube. If you don't mind your voice being on there, or if you're on camera, you would be on camera if you came off. So if you'd like, you can raise your hand and I can give you a chance to say something out loud. But if not, just drop something in the chat there. That'd be fine too. What questions do you have about anything that was said tonight? Maybe it's about the victim saboteur. Maybe it's just maybe about the idea of saboteurs in general. Maybe it's about the survival part of the brain. Maybe it's about the part of the brain that's built for thriving. What questions do you have? Drop them into the chat for me. All right, see one coming in. Is the goal to have pause, pray, and presence be automatic and a go-to when we feel distressed? Yeah, absolutely. What you would do with that exercise, if you did that on a regular basis, what you would begin to do is you would begin to create new neural pathways. What happens is with these saboteurs, they have created ruts in the survival part of our brain. And we are so used to going there that it just becomes easy. It just becomes reactive. We just go there. So when you choose to do that kind of exercise that I just showed you there, which I'll put back up again, feel free to take a picture of that or something if you want, or grab a screenshot of it. When you do this on a regular basis, what you're going to do is you're going to build a new neural pathway. So instead of going into victim mode, you're going to begin to figure out with God how to get the gift and the opportunity. Because in every circumstance, in every outcome of our lives, there's always a gift and an opportunity that God has for us in that. Otherwise, it wouldn't say in Romans that everything works together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So if everything's going to work together for our good, then why would we want to be in stress and in stress mode when we know that things are going to work good for us? God's going to work it good for us. So this kind of strategy here is going to put you in a place where you're more likely to see what God is doing, the gifts that he is bringing to you. Sometimes that happens right away, and sometimes it takes time. Sometimes we don't find out for days or weeks or months, or sometimes years, what is the gift and the opportunity and the thing we're going through today. But nonetheless, every time you do this, you're building a new neural pathway that makes it more likely that you'll receive that gift from God when it does come. Because how many know that God has tried to give you gifts in the past and you weren't ready to receive them? And so you didn't receive them, right? Or you received them, but you're like, this isn't a gift. And later it turned out and you realize, wow, that was a gift. Later, you just didn't realize it because you weren't in a place where you could see that. But when you do these exercises like this one on a regular basis, what you're doing is you're exercising the part of your brain that is able to capture lies. There's a part of your brain that's able to do that, and you're exercising that part of your brain by catching victim statements or any other kind of negative thought that doesn't belong in your head. When you catch it, you're exercising a muscle. When you do these exercises, you're exercising a muscle. And then when you pray to God and ask him, what is it that you have for me to learn in this? You're exercising another muscle. There's actually 3 muscles there in the brain that you're exercising in that one kind of exercise there. Great question. Thank you for asking. All right, I think there might be another one. Okay, how do you make this second nature? Can you stop the negative self-talk over time? Okay, so yes, you can make the second nature, but obviously the first time you go into the gym, you're not going to be able to bench press 500 pounds. So some of us are dealing with things that are 500-pound weights. Marriage conflict or work projects that are super heavy. And so we're not ready to handle the weight of that. So what is going to happen is this is going to build up over time. We're going to start with 5-pound weights and 10-pound weights. And that's what the neural pathway is, that the more we go down those neural pathways, the stronger we get. And so, yes, how do you make this second nature? You basically figure out a way to remind yourself throughout the day to do these kinds of exercises, to pay attention to your breathing, to listen for sounds, for visually looking at things and not judging them, but just looking at them and noticing what's in front of you. All the exercises I showed you are going to help you be in the present moment. And being in the present moment, then it's going to allow you to notice when you get a thought that isn't present oriented, it's a past regret or a future worry. And so when you're in the present, you notice these weird things. You're like, this isn't present moment. Oh, this is a regret of the past. I don't need that. I'm going to let it go. This is a worry for the future. I don't need that. I'm going to let it go. I'm just going to be in this present moment. We go back to those exercises. So the way to make it second nature is when you get up in the morning, you put your feet on the floor, feel your feet on the floor all the way into the bathroom. When you get to the bathroom, you wash your hands, feel the water on your hands. When you brush your teeth, like I often do, try to do 3 or 4 different things while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm learning to just brush my teeth and feel the bristles on my gums. All these things help us stay in the present moment. So if you keep doing that throughout the day, you're going to keep activating this thing in your brain called the self-command muscle. And you're going to be more in command of your brain than your brain being in command of you. So that's how you make it second nature, is you link these exercises to different things that you do in your day. When you sit down to have your breakfast, really taste your food. Pay attention to the taste of the raisins and the brand and whatever else, the yogurt that's in your that's in your cereal. And that's how you're going to stop negative thoughts over time. Is first you have to recognize them. So first you have to be in the present moment a lot. And when you're doing that, you're going to recognize the negative thoughts, and then you can do what I talked about here, stopping, praying, and then doing those PQ reps to recenter yourself. All right, someone said, I'm struggling to receive good because in the past, good has been taken. Yeah, this is a struggle for a lot of us. If you can do these PQ reps that I'm talking about, it's going to help you start to realize that God has gifts for you and opportunities for you, even in the things that have been taken away, right? One of the most painful things of the last season of my life was a work-related thing. Two work-related things in the past, like 5 years ago and then 2 years ago. And today I can see out of the pain of those two things, God has brought tremendous good. And so, yeah, some good things were taken away from me in the process of what I thought was going to be good for me, but it turned out that the things that God gives us, the gifts he gives us, are way better than the things that were taken away. So I would encourage you to, focus on being in the present moment as often as you can, because that's going to make a huge difference for you. Awesome. Great questions. Thank you, everybody. If you have any more, drop them in there. I might answer them now, or I might answer them in the next webinar. If you want to have lasting positive change, there's a couple of things that you need. One is you need insight. I've given you some insight tonight. I've shown you some exercises you can do. I showed you some things that you can do. But what you also need is the mental muscle. That's how this becomes second nature, is when you have the mental muscle, then you can bench press maybe not 500 pounds, but you can bench press a lot of weight. So real transformation doesn't come from knowing, it comes from training. And we need the training. If we want to weaken our saboteurs and strengthen our hope, then we need to build the mental muscles over time. And for most of us, we need a supportive environment to do that. What we did today is a powerful first step, but like any real change, it's not just about information, it's about transformation, and transformation takes training. It takes practice, it takes community, it takes support. That's how we actually build the muscles that shift us out of stress and into peace. And I know this because I went through this myself. 2 years ago, I took part in a 6-week mental fitness program, the same one that I now offer through our coaching ministry. And I want to show you what started changing for me after just 6 weeks of consistent practice. Here's what happened. Remember the survey I showed you, or the assessment I showed you at the beginning of our time together? This is what was happening in my brain. 45% of the time, I was stuck in negative thoughts. Here's what happened after 6 weeks of learning more about my saboteurs, learning more about those 3 parts of my brain that I mentioned earlier, and doing 15 minutes of these exercises every day. Here's what happened. My brain was now serving me 71% of the time, and only 29% of the time was I sabotaging myself. I had a work project that I was working on. It was a 1-year work project. It took me 2 years, and I wasn't sure how I was going to finish it until this 6-week program came along and retrained my brain. I completed that project like it was something that wasn't very heavy at all. And I felt the presence of God with me as I did that. And I've completed that project 12 times since then. And the project is a very difficult project. So something really shifted in my brain. And I had 2 people in my life with whom I was very discontent almost every single day. And that discontent almost evaporated in that 6 weeks. There was hardly a trace of it. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to see what some of the data shows for other people who have gone through this program. 85% increased their happiness. 91% managed stress better. Who wouldn't want that? 83% improved their self-confidence. 82% improved their relationships. 84% better at conflict management. 97% improve their empathy. And then in terms of performance, people are able to use their mental and emotional energy more effectively. They improve their ability to develop other people in their family or at work, and they're better at teamwork and collaboration. I wonder which of those from that list would most appeal to you? If you want to drop that in the chat, I'd love to see that. Which one of those would make the biggest difference in your life? Let me show you what happened to my friend Marlena, because Marlena went through the program with me when I went through it for the first time. She got 100% boost in her mental fitness. She went from her thriving brain was only online 40% of the time when I took her through this program, and by the end of it, she was 80% of the time in her thriving brain. And she said, I find myself happy most of the time now. I had another person who, when I first met them, they couldn't even talk. It took them like 3 or 4 minutes before they could even get the words out to speak to me when they came up to me after we had a workshop. And this person, after going through this program, said that at my yearly physical on Friday, I passed the mental health screening for the first time in at least 6 years. Some of my answers were not at all when they used to be almost all the time. You know, those questions your doctor asks you when he gives you that sheet. Questions like, how often do you find yourself unable to control negative thoughts? She was able to say definitively, I know how to stop those thoughts and I'm doing it. And that made a huge difference for her. She told me the other day that she's not taking any medication anymore, that she got off all the medication that she was on for mental health stuff. Now, this coaching program isn't about dealing with mental health, it's about dealing with mental fitness, but you can see the tremendous impact that working on her mental fitness had on her mental health. So if you're ready to break free yourself, I want to have you take this free Saboteur assessment. And you can find it at checkyourcompass.org/sabotage. And I'm going to place that into the chat. I don't know if it's going to come through to you all because the chat looks a lot different than it used to when I upgraded Zoom today. So somebody said, I would like to manage stress better. Someone else said, I would like to have more empathy. Good. So there is, I just placed into the chat the Saboteur assessment link. If you would rather just stick your email in the chat to me, I'll send it to you after the meeting. I'll send you the link if you want to put your email in there. We talked about one Saboteur, but there are actually 10. And so this assessment is going to help you determine what are the 2 or 3 top ones, because usually there's 2 or 3 that mess with us the most. So you'll be able to take this assessment. It only takes about 5 minutes. It's free. And then after you complete it, we would be happy to sit down with you and go over that with you and have you look at that top Saboteur and how it might be messing with you. And then also help you dream about what would life be like if that Saboteur wasn't messing with that strength that's underneath there, if we were able to let the grip go and let the strength that God's given you in whatever area it is be available for God's will and for his glory. All right. So grab that link from there that I put in there. I don't know if it's clickable or not, but it's checkyourcompass.org/sabotage. After the meeting tonight, I'm going to give everybody a preview of Unlocking Mental Fitness, the experience it's a 7-week group experience that I created on top of the program that I went through myself. That was a 6-week program at the time. So if you're grieving or working through trauma or trying to reach some goal, whether it's a personal goal or spiritual goal, maybe you're just stuck in cycles of overthinking and emotional overwhelm or negativity, this program is going to combine biblical truth and neuroscience together to help you rewire your brain for peace and clarity and purpose. And if that sounds like something that your soul needs right now, I'd love to share more after our closing prayer. All right. So here's the closing prayer. This is actually called the Serenity Prayer. And it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time and enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you'd like to hear more about unlocking mental fitness, I'm going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes going over that here at the end. So some of you have already heard this before. Some of you have already been through the program. So if that's you, God bless you. I hope to see you next time we do one of these, maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. And for those who are sticking around, I'm going to want to tell you about unlocking mental fitness. One of the key components of unlocking mental fitness is an app. And we give you access to this app that usually costs $995. And this app is going to help you get the daily practice, the 15 minutes a day practice that you need to rewire your brain. You need 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks. And we know this from MRIs. We take an MRI of your brain before you go through a program like this. And then we take an MRI of your brain after 6 to 7 weeks, 8 weeks. We're going to see new gray matter in the thriving part of your brain when we get to the end of it. And that's how we know that we're building new neural pathways. We can actually see it on a brain scan. So this app just makes it easy for you to do that because it gives you 2 or 3 minute exercises that you do throughout the day. By the time you get to the end of the day, you've got 10, 15 minutes already in. That app is also going to give you the information you need because we know that you need insight and mental muscle. It's also going to teach you the things along the way that you need to learn in order to learn about how your brain works and how to stop the saboteurs. We're also going to give you daily coaching in the app. So I have a place in there that you can tell me every day how you're doing, and I'm going to give you feedback and coach you through the program to help you get to whatever goal you might set. And so you're going to have access to me and one of my interns every single day in the app. And then we're going to do a weekly coaching session. We have a 1-hour weekly coaching session, and I'm going to coach you there. I'm going to make sure you understand the insights. And then once you understand the insights, I'm going to show you how you're going to practice for that next week to make sure that you get that mental muscle exercise. And we're going to integrate our faith into that process as well in our meetings and in our interactions in the app. We're going to make sure that we can use our faith to help us get the most out of our brains and learn how to use our brains to get even more out of our faith. So it's a symbiotic relationship. We're also going to give you the Saboteur assessment, which some of you already taken, or you'll take it once I send it to you. And we also have a PQ assessment. That PQ assessment is the one I showed you earlier, where my brain was at that 55 to 45 level, and then it went 71 to 29. That's called the PQ assessment. We give that to everyone who comes to our program, so you can take it at the beginning and take it at the end, and you can see what is happening in that MRI. You'll be able to see actually in the numbers of what happens in that assessment, even though we're not going to give you an MRI. You'll be able to see it in the numbers because they will change. Most people get a 40% or more increase in their mental fitness. Marlena got 100, and I was pretty upset about that because I didn't get that. I didn't get that kind of result. She probably put more effort into it, and that's probably why. We're going to give you a best-selling book called Positive Intelligence in a PDF form. We're also going to give you the audiobook of that so you can listen to it if you want. And that book's going to give you some of the foundational insights that you'll need that'll also be reinforced in the app. And then we're going to give you a small group experience because I'm going to lead that small group of 5 to 12 people through this program for 7 weeks. So the beauty of that is you get to see this working out in the lives of other people. And believe me, I would not have gotten the result I got without Marlena and the other people in my group. Because every time they posted in the channel, they were saying they did their exercise for the day. Guess what it made me do? It reminded me, oh yeah, I need to do my exercises and I need to post in the group. And so doing this in a group both encourages you, motivates you, but also gives you color because you see how this is working in the lives of other people. And I'll tell you, there's a huge benefit there when I see someone else being honest and vulnerable about what they're doing and how they're learning. it helps me see things that might be blind spots for myself. So if you add up all the resources that we're going to give you in this group, it's a total of like $4,700 or so. If you got a brake job and a transmission job, you definitely pay more than that. I know, because I paid more than that just for a transmission job a few months ago. But really what we're doing is we're giving you a brake job. We're trying to show your brain how to help you stop the survival part of your brain from propagating negative thoughts and lies, and trying to show you how your thriving brain works, which you actually have 5 gears in the transmission of your thriving brain. We need to show you what they are, and we need to show you how to figure out in any given situation which one of the 5 powers you need to handle what God has for you, so that we can get you moving in the direction towards your goal. So this is a 7-week program. The next one that we're doing is starting on July 14th, 2025. If you happen to be watching this after July 14th comes and goes, just reach out to us. We'll tell you when the next one's going to be offered. But these group meetings are usually right now offered on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And we have the meetings for 1 hour. And then if you need a recording of it because you missed a meeting or two, we'll make sure you get the recording of it. And we receive $995 to coach you for that 7 weeks. Again, you're going to have daily access to us for that 7 weeks. So if this is something that you would like to know more about, like to talk to me about, you can reach out to me at vinny@checkyourcompass.org. And our phone number is listed there, and also our website, checkyourcompass.org/schedule. You can get on my schedule for a free consultation. We can talk about this or whatever other needs you might have, and we'll try to help you figure out what's next for you. Here's something that you can scan, a code that you can scan that will take you to the page where you could find out about how to enroll in the program. Also, if you go there, you'll find out that we have some buy now, pay later options. So you can, there's zero financing available for 3 to 4 to 6 months, I believe. If you go beyond 6 months, then you have to pay interest, but you can check out those things in the checkout. If you go to bit.ly mental fitness unlock, you'll see it there.